Good afternoon and welcome into the Hook 'em Hoops podcast. My name is Jason Conander. His name is Tommy Yarish. We are happy to be back with you guys for another episode of Talking Texas Basketball here on the field of 68. Tommy, we finally have an episode with an overwhelming positive connotation as Texas knocks off Texas Tech in Lubbock on Tuesday night in a blowout. That game didn't go how any of us expected it to go. Give me your thoughts. I'm curious to hear what you have to say right off the bat.
Well, our good friend Fran Fraschilla put it really well on the call when he said that you've got about 5 games every year where everything just goes your way and there's no stopping you whatsoever. And on the flip side, you've got 5 games that you just can't get anything going. Nothing's going right for you. For Texas, this was one of those 5 games where everything was going right. The 12-point difference does not indicate to me just how much of a blowout this was for Texas. For them to come out with a 47-23 lead of the first half in the most electric atmosphere, one of the most electric atmospheres in the Big 12, without a shadow of a doubt, maybe you could argue Oklahoma, but the one where they're hated the most, and they just completely took Texas Tech out of this game before it even was reached the halfway point. It was very, very, very impressive. This was the most aggressive that Texas has looked defensively all season long. And I think I texted you during the game, Jason. I was like, man, Texas would be a 4 or 5 seed if they played defense like this all year.
Yeah,
They just came out ready to play aggressive on the
yeah.
defensive side of the ball, and that's going to win you basketball games, and it's going to win you basketball games in convincing fashion like they did the other night. The other thing that sticks out to me, Texas, when they out rebound teams significantly, they tend to do much better. 44-30 out rebounding the Red Raiders in this game. That had a big impact on it. And I'm sure you'll talk about this because you've been knocking on this door all season. The Texas bench was phenomenal.
Finally, finally, man, they had 34 points off the bench, and it helps when Kendall Weaver's coming off the bench leading the way with 15 points, including 9 of 11 from the free throw line, where he had struggled at that point, leading up to that point in the season. All in all, what an effort for Texas. I mean, this game wasn't remotely close for 80-90% of it. The Horns extended their lead to 30 in the second half. They held Texas Tech to 23 points in the first half. It was an all-around effort. Max Abmas and Dylan Dessou were Texas's two leading scorers. I mean, right there, you should be in the game. And Dylan Dessou and Max Abmas played really good games. Dessou didn't hit a three. Max Abmas was the only Texas starter to hit a three in the game. And so to have Dylan Dessou and Max Abmas play strong games, but it wasn't like they were carrying the load. Like everyone played a good game. Tyrese Hunter, even though he only scored 4 points, had a good defensive game. Brock Cunningham. How about the play by Brock Cunningham knocking Darian Williams into the scores table, flagrant two foul, probably the signature moment in his time at Texas, and he would maybe be the one to tell you that as well. Just it was an awesome moment, honestly, for Texas basketball. Him being so hated in Lubbock, he gets ejected. He riles up the crowd. He posts on Twitter afterwards. Brock gets the last laugh. That was awesome. It was awesome. And it was great for this Texas team to finally dominate a hostile road environment. That wasn't just any game at United Supermarkets Arena. Like, that was the game this season for Texas Tech. Was the last time that they were supposed to have this Texas team from Austin come in and face them. And the crowd was wild. We saw a kid get carried out, by 4 police officers. The crowd was wild, and it didn't matter to Texas. They freaking dominated and won by 12. They should have won by 20. They were up by 30. This was all out, complete and utter domination. And I'm just going to say they can lose their next 3 games, and they're still going to be in the NCAA tournament because of this quad one win in blowout fashion where they looked so good. They looked so good. And there's no way they're going to lose their next 3 games now after that performance. They can't, Tommy.
No, they really can. And one thing that I thought was really interesting from Rodney Terry after the game was I think he said something along the lines of, "We won this game before we even got on the plane." And where he was
Yep.
talking about the Longhorns did so well in practice, they had such a good practice that they knew going into this tough environment that they were going to win. That now has to be the same attitude, and they have to adopt the same habits that they did in practice this past week if they want to contend in their next 3 games and ultimately in March. Now, I'm not saying that they're not, competing hard in practice. I wouldn't know. I'm not there every day, but if you're telling me that there are days where Rodney Terry can look at his team and say, this team is going to win no matter what comes later in the week, you have to continue to try and pile that up, especially now at the end. It couldn't have happened at a better time, Jason. It couldn't have happened at a better time. And if that carries over, then maybe Texas does go to the second round of the tournament this year. I'm going to still say if they make it, just because who knows in college basketball anymore. But nonetheless, still a very, very convincing effort from the Longhorns. A lot to be impressed with. Jason, I think you need to take a victory lap with your Caden Shedrick talk. I think that you mentioning him getting involved would pay off big time, and boy did it. I think 8 minutes he comes out with 10 points, 6 boards, and 2 blocks. Efficiency is his middle name, and I know you've been hammering on that. Um, that's just great. And then Kendall Weaver, who was struggling offensively, and I think that's a big reason why Ronnie Terry took him out of the lineup and made him the sixth man, comes back and has 15 points to go along with 8 boards and 2 assists, a steal, and a block too. So I don't know about you, Jason, but I like Kendall Weaver being the sixth man. I was on board with him being a
Yep.
starter
Yep.
initially, but I think his offensive struggles, considering how good of a shooter he was at UTA, that hasn't really translated yet. So I like him coming off the bench, being that sixth man to bring the defensive energy back into the game. Maybe when Tyrese Hunter needs a breather or Max A. Smith needs to come off the floor. But man, this Texas bench was very impressive. Even Brock Cunningham, I'll give Brock Cunningham credit. He played really well. Granted, what he did was not a basketball play, and he earned every bit of that ejection. But Jason, when was the last time that Texas had a guy like that who was willing to do that, who made a play? When was the last time a Texas player has drawn a flagrant two foul? That just doesn't happen. They don't do that. And Brock Cunningham goes out and does that. Whether or not it was intentional, you can argue amongst yourselves. But sometimes when you
100% intention.
I would agree with you. But whether or not it was, when you have that tone setting play, when you set the tone and say, hey, we are absolutely whooping you right now and we will continue to do so, that does a lot for a team's charisma going forward. So although it may seem minor and we may forget about it in a couple of weeks, which I don't think I will, that was hilarious. But it may be something that truly does have an impact on this team going forward to show that, hey, we've been beaten up this season, but we're not messing around.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I think that this was perfect timing for the win for Texas. Obviously, they needed it for their resume. They needed it given how they had looked in previous hostile road environments. Now they have this game on Saturday against Oklahoma State. Probably a little bit of a cupcake matchup. Cowboys are 4-11 in conference play. This is a game where previously in years past, Texas would probably let it get away from them and focus on that Monday game in Waco. I think that Rodney Terry is going to do a good job of getting Texas prepared, getting them ready. I think that we could see this Saturday game, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show. The Saturday game, I think, is going to go a lot like a couple Saturdays against West Virginia went. I think that Texas is in great shape going into this game. As we talk about the NCAA tournament now, not too much more to wrap up with from that win in Lubbock because it wasn't close at all, and it was all good from Texas. So we can kind of tie the bow on that. If the tournament were to start today, and this is our first show of March, so it is kind of fitting that we do talk a little bit about the upcoming NCAA tournament. Right now, Texas would probably be 9 seed, 8 seed. Their seeding range is probably 6 to 10 right now. That's assuming that they don't lose to Oklahoma State. If they lose to Oklahoma State, they're right back on the bubble, unfortunately. Looking at bracketology, I live and breathe this stuff as we all do at this time of the year. I think that Texas is in a good scenario as an 8 seed, even as a 9 seed. And here's why I like the 9 seed for Texas. Right now, there are 3 Mountain West teams: Colorado State, Boise State, and New Mexico. They're all on that 6, 7, 8 line. Not all of them are going to increase their stock down the stretch of the regular season into the postseason. I would think that would be a good matchup for Texas because Colorado State is undersized. Boise State has solid size for the Mountain West, but playing against Texas, good matchup. And then New Mexico has that great home environment, but I mean, I'll have to see how they look on a neutral court in 2 weeks in the Mountain West tournament before I really judge them. I think that Texas is in a good spot because, and now they didn't play these games in the regular season, where you're like, okay, like this is a mid-major team that's going to make the tournament. Like they didn't play. Only Mountain West team they played was Wyoming. They're one of the worst teams in the Mountain West. So we don't really know how they could look. But right now, I like the 9 seed, 8 seed range for Texas. I mean, even if you're a 10 seed, you avoid playing a first and 1 seed in the second round. That would be fantastic for the Longhorns. But Tommy, what do you think? If you were to be Texas, what team do you have your eyes on that you would want to play? And what team do you have your eyes on that you really wouldn't want to play?
It's a good question. And I'll start with who I would want to play, and that is Northwestern. I think, the Wildcats have had some really impressive wins this season. They beat Purdue in overtime, they beat Illinois in overtime, but as far as consistency goes, they also lost to Minnesota in overtime. They took Purdue down to the wire again and lost to them in overtime. They lost to Rutgers by 3. They lost to Chicago State too, who had a very good season, although it was cut short. A very good season for Chicago State. So, you know, there are some things to like about this roster, but when I look at the Big Ten, I look at it as Purdue, Illinois, and everybody else. I think that those two teams are basically the only two legitimate teams that could make a run into the second weekend of March. So Northwestern is kind of one of those wild card teams, and I think matching up wild card for wild card against Texas would benefit them more than, say, another opponent who I'll talk about here in a moment. Boo Buie is so much fun to watch for Northwestern. So if he has a big game, that might cause some problems for Texas. But aside from that, I think that the Longhorns would match up fairly well in that game. So give me Northwestern for a team I would want them to play. When it comes to who I wouldn't want them to play, I think it's an easy answer. It's FAU. Not only do you knock on the tournament experience from last year, making it to the Final Four and knocking on the door of a national championship appearance, but you've got two of the most premier guards in the country in John L. Davis and Elijah Martin. You know, have they had the season that they had last year, what people were expecting them to have? No, they're 21-7 and second place in their conference, but they've lost to some good teams and they've played them pretty close. They lost to Illinois by only 9 early in the season. I think that's when Illinois was really rolling. And other than that, they've picked up some good wins too. They beat Arizona in double overtime. That was definitely a big win for them. So I think the tournament experience and the play of their two guards is what worries me about the Owls. So give me Northwestern for a good draw for Texas to start, FAU for quite a pretty tough draw for the Longhorns to start.
I think that FAU would be a horrible draw for Texas. I
Yeah.
I shudder at the idea of like Max Abmas on John L. Davis. First off, that's like a 6-inch height differential. Second off, John L. Davis is one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. Like those guys are going to want that game so much more than Texas, and that's not even a knock on this group. They just had a huge win. FAU I love that program. I would hate to see Texas play Northwestern because, I mean, Texas would win. But being from Chicago, I always feel obligated to cheer for Northwestern when they make the tournament. Boo Buie is my favorite player in the country, firmly. I love watching him play. That matchup would be so fun, though. I mean, Max Abmas and Boo Buie and some of the Brooks Barnheiser and Dylan Mitchell matchup, two really athletic wings. I'd be really excited to watch that. To answer my own question, I would actually really want Texas to face Michigan State. I know that the Spartans kind of go on a run every year in March. Or no, I wouldn't want them to face Michigan State. This is a team that, they've been beat up this year. They've been scrutinized because the net rankings favor them, but they lose a bunch of games that they're not supposed to lose, and they have the worst winning percentage out of any team at large team that's in the projected field right now. Again, a Tom Izzo coach team against this Texas team, like you look at what they did against, or what they didn't do, better put, against the Kelvin Sampson team and the Bill Self team and the Danny Hurley team this year, them going up against the Hall of Fame coach in the first round of the tournament, it does worry me because that is a mismatch. On top of the fact that Tyson Walker is one of the most clutch players in the country, he is an electric do-it-all scoring guard, and the Michigan State defense is pretty good. They have good bigs. They can space you out. They're missing that shooting. I don't like Texas in a grinded out, first team to 60 wins type of game. I don't think that suits them well with the way that they've been winning games lately. So that would be my pick. All right, we have a game against Oklahoma State on Saturday. the last game of the season that doesn't like really, really matter. And what I mean when I say this is they have Baylor on Monday, senior night against Oklahoma, senior day, because it's at 1 p.m., against Oklahoma a week from Saturday. And then you have the Big 12 tournament. So if Texas is going to do anything that they haven't done before, or kind of get guys looks that they want to get them, it's going to be this game. Like I want to see Tyrese Hunter score 20 points this game. I want to see Caden Shedrick play 20 plus minutes this game. I want to see Dylan Mitchell shoot a 3-pointer this game. Like this is the game for Texas to try out things that might work in March because they're probably going to win against Oklahoma State, especially at home. They had the tough loss in Bedlam last week at the buzzer, and then they lose against UCF. They look kind of unmotivated. I'm not so worried about the matchup. I just hope that Texas is able to accomplish something other than winning the game in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, you kind of have to think that's the mindset, right? You have to wonder what kind of a emotional toll that Bedlam game took on the Cowboys. It was mentioned in the press conference afterwards that yeah, it did take a toll on our guys, and they came out a little flat against UCF and lost to the Knights just a couple days ago by 6 points. So you do have to think that this is the final tune-up game for Texas, and going into the last two games against Baylor and Oklahoma, it's a really good time to have a tune-up game because once the Big 12 tournament comes around, odds are you're not really going to have much of an opportunity for a tune-up game, even in the first round, because if you win that first round game, you're playing, Houston or Baylor or Kansas right immediately after. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Jason. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed in the Big 12, but this should be a win for the Longhorns, just because Oklahoma State has been so on and off. I think that, and this term gets used so much, and I don't want to hop into the cliches, but that Bedlam game was kind of their Super Bowl, and that was the game
Yeah.
that they had circled on the calendar that they want to win that, and the season's already over with, so you know what really matters to us emotionally after that. And, to come up short in overtime on a game winner, that's got to really take it out of you. So I completely understand, but this is a game where, yeah, Texas should be able to run up the score and be able to try new things. I think Caden Shedrick getting minutes, like you mentioned, would be huge because if he's playing like he did earlier in the season at Madison Square Garden, oh boy, that completely changes things going into the closing stretch of the season and into the Big 12 tournament. We could see a completely different team for Texas by the time that the tournament rolls around in Kansas City. But yeah, just I completely agree with you in that this is time for Rodney Terry to throw the kitchen sink on the floor basically and figure out what works heading into the closing stretch here.
Yeah, and looking at the actual matchup on the court, like just to give the people watching at home a little preview of what we will see in the game. Javon Small is kind of the do-it-all guy for Oklahoma State. He's good for about between 16 to 20 points per night. He averages 15, but looking at his game log, like he literally scores between 15 and 18 points every single game. His season high was 25 months ago against Creighton. He put up 21 in last weekend's game against Oklahoma. He does remind me a little bit of the guard for UCF, Jalen Sellers, in the sense that he can light up in a hurry. He does more than one thing well, so you're going to have to stay on your toes defensively. And he could probably be the guy that beats Texas if Oklahoma State has everything go right. Outside of him, Keon Williams is a player that I like just because he's a good rebounding guard. He's big, 6'5". But that's a good matchup for Tyrese Hunter because he does not shoot the ball well, shooting 7% from three on the road. Yikes. Tyrese Hunter should have his work cut out for him on Saturday. And then finally, Brandon Garrison is a guy who is going to be on my breakout list for next year. He's had up and down games for Oklahoma State, but he was a McDonald's All-American last year. Freshman, high-rated four-star recruit. I think that if Mike Boynton sticks around, God forbid if he sticks around one more year in Oklahoma State, I think that Brandon Garrison will be a big breakout candidate just based on what they've been able to do with some of their bigs in the past, the skill set that he offers. Not a great situation for him this year. being one of the only young guns on a pretty bad hodgepodge team. But I do see a lot of growth potential for growth in his game. And I'm really excited, honestly, to watch the early part of this game because these are the matchups that like we're never going to see ever again. Texas isn't going to play Oklahoma State again. Like there's no reason. Texas isn't going to play like West Virginia again. There's no reason. And so like hey, if this Oklahoma State team has like a guy or two sticks around for another year or two and they make like a Sweet 16 run, like be cool, like saying like, oh hey, I remember, when they were absolutely horrible playing against Texas and now look at them now. Like I see that in this Oklahoma State team. It's not happening this year. I think Texas wins by 30.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this. You get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph fandom app. But here's the best part. The more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider to level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast.
By 30, you said?
Yeah. No, yeah, by 30.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but I don't think it's going to be even a little close.
I don't think it's going to be close either. I think 30 points is a little too lofty for me. But if we're doing our predictions, I'm glad you mentioned Brandon Garrison. I forgot to bring him up. I watched him at McDonald's All-American last year. Certainly one of the more physical guys out of the group. Not as many physical big men came through in that class, and I think Garrison was one of the lone exceptions there. Aaron Bradshaw comes to mind, although not as much physical as he is, just massive. But Garrison started off the year slow, but he's come along nicely. He's leads the team in blocks, averages 7 and 5 a night, and for a freshman on a not very good team. Apologies to any Cowboys fans out there, but on just a not very good team, I think if he gets developed well, that could be their best guy since Cade Cunningham. I don't think that that's too lofty to say or that's too lofty expectations. I'm not saying he's going to be better or is Cade Cunningham, but he can certainly be the best guy they've had since then. As far as predictions go for the game, I think it'll be a big test for Garrison, seeing what he can do against Dessou and Shedrick down low. So a chance for him to get some experience there. But I also don't think this one's going to be close. I say Texas wins by around that 15 mark. I don't know if I want to be as lofty as 30, but I do think that the Longhorns get a huge win at home.
That wasn't on your bingo card for today's episode. Me predicting Texas by 30.
No, I knew you were going to pick Texas to win. I didn't think you'd pick them by 30.
I just think things are clicking, man. Like I think that the big thing for me on Tuesday was Max Abmas got his shot back. Like he hit the threes that he was hitting at the start of conference play, that he was hitting against Baylor, that he was hitting against OU. He hit like not necessarily because he's going to miss open looks, and that's like a frustrating part of his game. But like the Max Abmas, the quintessential Max Abmas three is when Texas is on a run, and then he like pulls up or gets it kicked out to him at NBA range, and he drains it. He hit 3 of those alone against Texas Tech, and so that's big. I think that he's going to come out of the gate and probably have 12 points by the time that there are 10 minutes left in the first half. That's just the way that I see this game going. Like the other thing is with Oklahoma State, like how much do you have to play for? They're not playing for an at-large bid. Their coach is unfortunately probably going to get fired after this year, and their second leading scorer is out for the season. And so, like, this is a good matchup for Texas. If they lose this game, they deserve to be like firmly back on the bubble, back like where they were before the Texas Tech game, which was pretty dire straits. Like they were staring down the barrel of the gun of probably being the first 4 in, being an 11 seed. Now it's crazy how much your tournament status can change with one big win. But yeah, I've got high expectations for this one. Think Texas will win pretty easily. Hey, maybe we'll get some Zarek Onyema minutes and Chris Johnson. Maybe we can get those guys a little bit of play.
Please, Rodney, I know you listen, man. Get Chris in the game, please. He needs the minutes. He deserves the minutes. He's going to be a star.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great talking to you as always, Tommy. Great previewing this game. It's exciting having a show where, we kind of feel like, the season's never over. The season, especially as we're on March 1st. But it's nice kind of knowing, okay, in 2-3 weeks from now, we're probably going to be talking about the NCAA tournament. We didn't know that a week ago.
No, we didn't. So it is nice. No offense to the NIT, but I'm pretty glad that we get to talk about this and not the NIT. The NIT is still solid. Should be a solid tournament this year, but Roddy Terry and the Longhorns to the tournament now in back-to-back years. Hey, his agenda. I'm still carrying his agenda. I think he's going to be just fine.
I should be careful with my words here regarding the NIT because I don't know where I'm going to be working after graduation. I very well could be covering the NIT next year. But I'll never forget last spring interning at Fox Sports and being in the highlights department during the first week of March Madness, which is also the first week of the NIT, and they scheduled everyone who was a college basketball fan to do a March Madness game. That way, because when you're doing highlights for a game, you have to cut every single play and log it. And so you can't like be on your phone. You can't be distracted. So you're basically screwed if you have an NIT game and you want to watch the NCAA tournament. And I just remember seeing the people who had NIT games. None of them were real basketball fans. Like that was the sacrifice of all sacrifices that they made, sitting there watching those 40 minutes play by play, not even realizing how meaningless that basketball was, and not half realizing how meaningful the basketball going on the TVs right above them were. Like, things like that make me fear the NIT. And the NIT is good for the schools. It's good for the exposure. Postseason tournaments give everyone revenue. It's good. But that was my fear for us, that, we'd have that NCAA tournament going on. We'd be talking about the NIT. It'd be like the SpongeBob and Patrick meme where they're in they're like downstairs, like dancing or something. And there's like Squidwards up like looking through the vent. And so that's exactly how it would be like. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Great talking to you, Tommy. Great talking to all y'all at home. We will be with you guys again after the Oklahoma State game to preview Monday's matchup in Waco against Baylor. Coming down the stretch run of March. Super excited for what's to come. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to y'all soon.